Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning into our talk today from Global Brands about how we are responding to the global pandemic. It's myself, Charlie Lever, on the call today, as well as my colleague, Christian Sargensen. But also Matt and James, you can see on the screen here, will be on as well as us to answer questions during the talk. And also there'll be some time at the end for any further discussion. So you'll be able to just drop that message into the little box. So anything that comes up at any point, just we'll be able to live answer questions during this recording. So just a little bit about Global Brands and who we are. We are a business that was founded with students in mind and have been catering for the student market since we launched in 1997 by Steve Perez, who still runs the business today. A very innovative business and very creative, coming up with lots of different drinks that you'll know and love, that you'll have seen in your venues and so on. Created lots of products across the years. We are in 69 markets internationally, but of course the main focus of our activities is in the UK, and we are experts of the UK market and the UK consumer. So that's where you'll find us doing most of our activity for our most loved brands. Here's just a little snapshot of some of the products we have in our portfolio, which you can see are very wide ranging, from RTDs through to energy drinks, tonics and mixers, spirits, ready to serve. So there's a whole range of products there. But you'll see VK is what we're going to be talking about today. And VK is the original Global Brands product and is the center. It's been the #1 RTD for students for 6 years running in the NUS Drinks Tracker. And that's for a reason, because it's great and we love working with and interacting with students and student venues. But today we are here to talk about the global pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, lockdown 1 and 2, the tiered system, the curtailments on hospitality, and what all of this has meant for us as a business and a brand. Just to talk you through some of the challenges we've faced and are still facing and how we've responded to them. And we've also got some stuff to talk around sustainability, what we've been doing as a business to do that. So hopefully this should be really rich and interesting for those of you who have joined in on our talk. So I will be starting with VK, and the first area that we want to talk about is brand positioning. So those of you who are familiar with VK will know that it is a very vivacious and youthful for young adult brand, really exciting brand to work with. So you see, very colourful. We worked with really high profile influencers. We have student ambassadors across the country. We do brand partnerships with businesses such as boohoo.com and New Look. So it's very energetic and exciting, colourful, engaging brand. To break that down a little bit more into some sort of marketing-y speak, let me talk you through our brand vision, mission, and essence. So the brand vision is the world as VK wants to see it. And for us, that is and every day is a colourful and fun party open to everyone. Then our brand mission leads into that, which is how are we going to get to that world, that brand vision, by bringing all young adults together to share unforgettable experiences. And to sum up the whole brand in one line, our brand essence, it's bringing the party to any situation. Now, with all of those, as hopefully the feel and the sense that you get about what VK means, we were able to bring that to life very literally through our fantastic tours, through activations that we've done in venue, prizes that we've given, and so on and so forth, and make that party and bringing people together happen in a very literal sense. Obviously, what's happened with the coronavirus pandemic is that we are not able to do any of that, but we've got to hold on to our brand essence and ensure that we are bringing the party to any situation while recognizing how serious it might be. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about, how we've tried to bring the party to any situation despite trying circumstances to ensure that the VK brand stays strong and true. Now, prior to the pandemic, I'm sure many of you in this room will have seen this slide or this type of slide that's come from us, where we shout about the most up-to-date, the most recent data from us, from the most trusted sources. Because prior to the pandemic, again, 63% of our total UK volume was through the on-trade. And obviously that's been greatly affected since March. So it is a difficult time for us as a business. Now below, you can see that that's been broken down into pubs, nightclubs and venues, the percentage that travelled through. This is from CGA, who are the sort of insight and data collection body for the on-trade. So it's the best source of data that we can use. Interestingly, though, they count student venues in the pubs number. So when we're thinking that 20% of our venues or nightclubs and venues, there is actually higher, but CGA just counts student venues in the pubs number. But yeah, so you can see a lot of our volume and our normal ways of working have gone away. So we as a business like to work by listening and talking and learning with our customers and our consumers, then executing fantastic activity, and then being able to evaluate that and share the data from it with you and just keep growing and growing and growing. Obviously, that's all fallen away this year because we haven't been able to execute any activity. We've therefore not got amazing data to share. And although actually compared to our competitors, everyone's doing badly, but we're still doing okay compared to our competitors. It's difficult for us as brand owners to not be able to have this amazing data that we're so used to being able to share to prove how we're doing. And we just can't wait for things to get back to normal so we can start going back through listening, executing and evaluating and sharing. So we hope we can get back to that soon. So what activity have we done with the brand to keep that party sense alive? During the Rule of Six time prior to lockdown 2, when all the students were coming back to campus and young adults across the country were starting a kind of post-summer new year, we started our We Are VK party campaign. So very simple, and the key to this was the simplicity that we just were creating party packs with a case of VK and some POS and some giveaways in there, and encouraging people to come onto the website and click to enter. We actually had over 20,000 entries to this competition, which was really, really fantastic for us. But of course, we were making sure that we were at all points in communicating this We Are party, that we wanted people to stay safe, follow social distancing guidelines, but still have fun, because it's about making sure that we are being responsible retailers and a responsible brand, but also still keeping that essence around the party sense. We think this was a really nice way to bridge that gap. Also, of course, it was really important to stay fully engaged with various student platforms and staying engaged with various students. So we've worked again, as we have for several years, with the Tab, which is obviously the student online newspaper. Did some great content with them, which again had good click-throughs, and also Dig-In, which you may know as the student sampling. They do the boxes at the beginning of the year. We did a competition on their app with a bundle worth £1,000 that I myself actually would have loved to win. And it was one of their most entered competitions on the app. So this shows that students do still want to interact with VK, even if they can't be with the claw in the nightclub at 2 in the morning having a great time. They still want to get involved with VK and what it's about, which is really, really great for us. It's also been really important. Our main avenue of communication when we no longer have the venues is across social media. So we've got a really strong content here. I'm very proud of the content that we put out. And as you can see, there's a wide variety from various cocktails that people can make at home, through to making playlists accessible on Spotify to go with the party packs, using current influencers, and then also just humor relevant to students. So making sure that our content cuts through all the time. And we have so much engagement on our channels that it really puts pay to making sure that that sense of party and fun comes across in all of our communications. So Then that leads me on to talk to you around late night high energy, which, as I've alluded to, is obviously usually when we're in business as usual, really, really key to the brand. I'll remind you of our fantastic tour that we do each year, which more and more students enjoy every year. The sales increase year on year. We had Do You VK through to Nocturnal, Electric, and last year We Are VK. We love doing the tour. It's our kind of pièce de résistance. Love working with you and our different customers and bringing these great key activations to life. This year, we were planning, obviously, these were our first ideas, looking to collaborate with all kinds of our different trusted customers, but our ideas were starting to form around We Are Cosmic and the idea of taking people to an out-of-this-world experience after such a crummy year. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to execute this due to the restrictions. So we're sad to have not done the tour, but we're parking the development of that idea and that concept till hopefully next Freshers, when we should be able to party together again. In the meantime, though, we've still wanted to be able to get on campus, still interact with the students, still work for our customers, and do the best that we can. So we've come up with a few different methods of doing that. This vaguely ridiculous giant pop-up VK Cube. It's huge, it's impactful, it allows us to be on campus, but crucially activate in a COVID-safe way. So we spent a lot of time developing this, and we're really quite proud of it. And we want to be able to get onto campus and deliver samples, deliver giveaways. There's a big selfie screen on one side so that we can do competitions and still be able to interact with our consumers in a real way, even if it's not a huge big party. So yes, you can see we've got our COVID secure tour option to go outside or inside at any venue across the country. We've worked up loads of great screen media and POS for seated activations that can be used day and night. We're launching new products, the 275 of our raspberry and peach flavor, which launched last summer in a 70cl and was a real hit. And of course, as ever, we've got the brilliant VK merch and giveaways that people are always just so desperate to get their hands on. So we still have loads of options for how we can get out there and be an engaging, fun party brand in this new COVID world. But of course, what is most important of all is ensuring safety and compliance and the safety of our consumers, of our customers, and ourselves. So we have reams of risk assessments. We have bought every bit of kit that we could need to make sure that we're meeting all the different guidelines and so on and so forth, and are really very, very serious about making sure that everything that we have planned is completely safe and is very compliant, and it's really an absolute top priority for us. So do rest assured that any activation that we carry out with you guys, this is first and foremost in our mind. But what's also in our mind is what is the future of partying, and what does that look like for us, and what does that kind of mean? I mean, I'm sure for a lot of you who are listening to this talk right now, the reason we're in this industry is for moments like this pictured, when the room is absolutely packed, everyone's having this kind of communal, incredible experience. There's really nothing like it, and it's that buzz why we're in this industry. But although the restrictions until the vaccine can come in or whatever means that it's very unlikely we're going to get to a situation like this for now, what we have seen, and there's just some examples from various customers of us across all different kind of channels and areas, is just how innovative an industry this is. So it's really heartening to see that consumers and customers alike are adapting to what we can do and trying to make the most of the situation and still ensure that people can party and have a good time. If it's about doing a seated headphone disco, then so be it, and get all those picnic tables into these venues so people can sit down in their groups of 6 and have the parties that we want. Because yes, whilst we might not be quite here yet, we can still have good fun doing this, and we as a business and a brand are really keen to make sure that we're working with everyone at the best that we can to bring this to life, so that we can ensure that VK is always delivered in a way with a sense of party and fun. So those are my brand bits. Hopefully some questions will have come through while I was saying that, but I'm going to pass over to my colleague Christian now, who will be able to talk you through some bits around global brand sustainability policy.
Thank you, Charlie. Hello, everyone. So we started putting this presentation together probably in February, after we'd just done a big piece of work on sustainability, and this was going to be my opening slides even back then. I couldn't possibly have imagined the year that we have then had since, and just how rapidly things have changed. I think that probably taking one piece of silver lining from what has been a pretty terrible year for most of us is actually just how it's shown that the world can come together, work together to actually fight a really pressing issue. And although it's changed very much the way that we shop, socialize, commute and work, I think as well the fact that the planet itself might have had a brief little bit of respite in the summer from pollution and everything that goes with our capitalist world has to be taken a little bit with heart, albeit a very small consolation. But it very much has been just a little bit of a blip. And although there have been many tragedies during the COVID situation, actually its effect on the global population has been relatively minimal. So we're going to be growing as a planet about 80 million people this year by the time the year is over. And that figure is accelerating. So to give you an idea, in the 100 years from 1820 through to 1920, the global population increased from approximately 1 to 1.8 billion. So that's an 80% increase. In the 100 years after that, from 1920 to the present day, it's increased by roughly 6 billion. It's a 600% increase. Some quite amazing figures. In terms of temperature as well, we often talk about global warming. Obviously, there are some very famous skeptics. But although we might take this with a pinch of salt and even a slight bit of humor in this country because of our climate, actually, we've experienced 20 of the hottest years on record in the last 22 years. We've just recently, last year, had the hottest February on record, and we've had the hottest summer month on record as well. And you might ask, what does this matter with a couple of degrees of extra warming? Well, most scientists predict that the Earth will increase somewhere between 2 and 4 degrees over the next 100 years. That corresponds with a rise of 1 meter. Also in sea. Now, if you consider that 1 billion people at the moment above sea level, that gives you a bit of an idea, together with the population increase, on what even a small rise in sea level might do. We could actually see billions of people homeless, or at least incurring trillions of pounds worth of damaging costs to their homes and their livelihoods. Before COVID kicked off, probably the main thing in the news was plastic, brought probably to the conscience of the public by David Attenborough, but then adopted by a lot of people. And actually, I think when the facts and the figures came out and the scale of the situation finally came to light, it was shocking. What was also shocking, I think, was how little was going on, certainly in major business, to actually correct it, put it right, and deal with the situation. We've all seen some of the tragic images and photos, particularly of wildlife, that have borne the brunt of some of our actions. But I think because it's been so far away in exotic locations, we've almost put it a little bit to the back of our minds. And I think it's just human nature that it is out of sight and it is a little bit out of mind. That's not going to be for long. Because if we continue to fill our landfill at our current rates, actually all current places where we put our rubbish will be gone in the next 6 years. And I certainly don't want a new landfill site dug up in Greenbelt land round the corner from me. So it is very much a problem that is close to home as well. So much so that the government announced last year that there would be a tax to come on plastic products and those that it didn't contain at least 30% recycled content, and that will come into effect from April 2022. Now, even though the pandemic situation has been in full force, the government has recently announced they're bringing forward the banning of petrol and diesel cars. So we should all plan for this to go ahead as expected. And in terms of ourselves, giving this presentation to you and those listening, we have VK, and we have the tremendously well-selling VK. So within NUS outlets last year, students consumed approximately 3 million PET bottles of VK, which is an awful lot of plastic, where the onus is on both us giving the presentation and you guys as the person that sells to try and deal with this in the most appropriate way and that harms our environment the least possible. So when we were conducting this work, we were analysing quite a lot of articles and data, of which there are absolute myriad. There is so much information that we needed to break it down into something that was digestible and workable and actionable for us. So we created a wider CSR agenda and CSR plan. Thankfully, when we looked into it, we were actually doing quite a few of these things already. What we did find was that we just didn't have it in an official capacity. We didn't have objectives and we didn't have targets that we're going to monitor on a yearly basis. So we've sought to change that and put something in place. So we're going to be looking at employee welfare, drinker well-being, environmental impact, and our community impact in the local area. And I'm going to talk to you today about the two middle ones of those. So drinker well-being, again, we looked at 4 particular areas: the way that we market, our products themselves, and what can we do to change that in the future. The reduction of sugar being a really big area of focus recently, and then drinker safety as well. So in terms of responsible marketing, I'm sure most people know, but we are, as an industry, self-regulated. There have been a lot of critics of that in the past, and they've pointed to us to say, how can we possibly be responsible if we're doing this regulation ourselves? Well, let me assure you, the absolute last thing that the drinks industry wants is for the government to regulate us or an independent body. We do not want to be the next tobacco. That would be disastrous for the drinks industry and for all of us at Global Brands, but then a lot of people out in trade as well. So just to briefly explain the groups here. So we have the Portman Group, which is a charity that has been created by many of the biggest alcohol producers and suppliers, of which we are a signatory and have been for some time. That governs all of our marketing, essentially, and that is a self-regulated piece. The ASA is the Advertising Standards Authority that we are also beholden to, and they have a separate code on alcohol advertising, which is very strict. If there are any complaints that are upheld to that, they will then potentially go to Ofcom to the broadcasters, and potentially we would not be allowed to advertise, which again would be disastrous for our business. And then Drinkaware, which is a separate charity affiliated to the Portman Group, but this charity is solely dedicated to educating about the dangers of alcohol, excess consumption of alcohol, and providing places for people to go and get support should they need them. In terms of our NPD, so this is threefold. So we have actually for some time, even before things like the sugar tax were mooted, looked at our products and sought to take sugar out of them. And actually we've done that across most of our key lines to around 30%. In terms of NPD itself, we pride ourselves in providing solutions for late night customers and off trade that actually take units out of the market. So we have done reasonably well recently in selling RTD cans, and they're a really effective way of not only providing a quick service solution, but they are also lower ABV than the traditionally made counterparts over the bar. And then looking to the future, some things that Charlie will touch on a little bit later, but we have looked at NPD that has actually removed either alcohol through no-low products or removed sugar completely. In terms of VK, on one of our biggest brands and biggest pieces of NPD that we look at, actually over the last couple of years, we've taken sugar out of it pretty much to the tune of 30%. So that on a brand that was already at the lower end of traditional RTD in terms of sugar is quite a marked change. That's resulted in 7 out of 9 of our flavours being less than 6 grams of sugar per 100 ml. And then by midway through next year, hopefully we'll have all of those down to 5 grams or under. Now that, although we aren't subject to the sugar tax, has become a widely understood level for being quite low sugar products. So that is where we're going to aim for with all of our range. But, and this is a really crucial point, particularly when considering sustainability pieces, that actually there is a real balancing act to be struck. So plastic has borne the brunt of most people's focus over the course of the last 18 months to a couple of years. But actually plastic, when treated and dealt with well, can be a really great material, not least for drinker safety in a high energy or event environment where it becomes far less of a missile. There are far less accidents. And we know by talking to a few of you that that very much has been the case. That also leads to greater confidence among students. So this was a poll that we took. And unsurprisingly, with PET, they feel very safe in the drinking environment. So in terms of environmental impact, again, there is so much information around. And I think recently the plastic war, or the war on plastic, has become synonymous with sustainability. But sustainability doesn't mean plastic or removing plastic. You know, it's very much about maintenance. But then in businesses like ours that want to grow, maintenance isn't always accepted. So then we just need to be really mindful that actually it's about avoiding the depletion of natural resources and trying to maintain that ecological balance. Essentially, it's about using less to make more. And in that instance, it is just about efficiency, which surely is great for all business. So it is kind of surprising that more of us haven't put more of a focus on this earlier. In terms of students and in terms of NUS members, so again, we conducted a short survey back in February. And actually, and unsurprisingly, we found that sustainability is incredibly important. But maybe interestingly for us, actually, I think it's even more important for brands like ourselves to act responsibly and to act sustainably. So the onus is very much on us to create, plan, and action. But then also, slightly more sobering, I guess, is the behavioural element. So we can do all that we can do, and so can governments, but there is a huge cultural shift that needs to go on. And actually, when we asked people have they made efforts to stop using plastic, yes, most had, but some definitely hadn't. And actually, most people have made some effort, but not particularly committed. You know, so even despite it being in the news in a big way, there's still a big change to be had. So with all the available data, we had to try and put it into a bit of a digestible format. And I need to stress that this isn't scientific. This is just through our own research to try and come up with an action plan, you know, that is attainable and is actionable for us. And what we found, long story short, is there is no perfect solution. You know, so we looked at effectively the mining of raw material through to end of life disposal. And what we found was different packaging formats have different benefits. You know, so even though plastic is very poor in terms of if it's not recycled, actually it can be, and actually the manufacturing process is not particularly arduous, and the plastic material itself can be really beneficial, as we've just talked about with safety. Even something like paper that we recycle readily and can be grown very sustainably if done correctly, actually is really water intensive in the manufacturing process. So again, it's not a perfect solution. So we had to go and try and put some sort of score on these. So we literally gave it a 1 for poor, a 2 for moderate, and 3 for good. And so we came out with these scores based on the 5 areas we looked at. And as you can see, it's a pretty close run thing. There isn't a sort of a screaming standout leader. Aluminium cans, we decided was probably the best overall solution. But again, I think there are 2 things that majorly came out of this for us. One was that you very much need to consider what is right for your business. And if you are going to make a change, it needs to be done so in a very considered, appropriate manner. A knee-jerk change into another packaging format is not the answer. You know, if everyone moved suddenly into paper, that would place a huge strain on the sustainable supply chain. It could lead to deforestation, so on and so forth. The other thing that we deduced, which is probably the rule that we've taken on most, is actually the enemy is single use. It is not the particular format, it is the throwaway culture with which we live by at the moment. And it is something we've very much got to try and correct. And actually, it's in two ways that we do that. One is through behavior and culture change, and the other is through infrastructure. And at the moment, actually, there is quite a lot of business making some great strides in terms of being able to use recycled material. And actually, as a country, we recycle, or we put and sort into different colored bins about 70% of our bottles. But actually, as a nation, we only recycle about 30% of that. So only about 30% of it is actually turned into a reusable format. And that is something that's definitely got to change. And this is, again, quite telling from the students that we surveyed, to show the difference in behavior and what needs to change. When they're in their home and they're used to sorting into different colored bins, and their mind is probably more focused on recycling, actually most people recycle an awful lot of produce. Whereas when they're out of the home and their mind is maybe on things like speed or footfall or convenience or even talking to their friends, their mindset isn't in that place, and actually they recycle much less. So out of all of the work that we've done, again, we split it into a fairly easy to digest and actionable plan focusing on these 4 areas. And Charlie will talk to you to finish the talk in a minute a little bit about some things we're doing, particularly within packaging. And then finally, from me, the objectives that we've put in place as a business. So we didn't want to put really long-ranging, really grandiose targets on things that we didn't know whether we could achieve or not. So we've just broken it down into bite-sized chunks and said that over the next 5 years, we will try and employ a continuous improvement practice in effectively everything that we do, encompassing these 3 areas. So we want to work with our suppliers to drastically reduce the amount of virgin material that's in our products by 2025. Hopefully we can get to that 30% figure. It's a real stretch for us. We should be able to do it with a lot of hard work. Reduce utility usage per case every year. As far as we sit, that's just good business. But we need to measure it and make sure we're doing it, achieving it, and then working with our customers and suppliers to really step change the level of recycling of our products in the nighttime economy. So this is the first step, being able to talk to everybody today. We've had a few positive conversations with the NUS already, and hopefully we'll have many more going into the new year and be able to come back to you with some more ideas and some more action plans. But now I'm going to hand back over to Charlie, who's just going to talk to you about a couple of things we have been doing with BK.
Okay, thank you, Christian. So there's not much left of this talk, guys, but again, please do ask any questions. You'll see the little box. We'd love to talk to you about all of the work that we've been doing, so don't hold back with your questions. I'll just quickly, like Christian said, run through some stuff specific to VK once again. So here's just a little timeline which shows the kind of 4 key areas that we are looking to as a brand to improve sustainability. So that's recycled primary packaging, recycled secondary packaging, 250ml cans and other NPD, and our POS pledges. So you can see that we are planning to do all of this over the next 4 years, all being well. So in terms of primary packaging, we made PET, and kind of as Christian alluded to in his speech, we made PET for the high energy late night environments, as it is without a doubt the safest vessel possible. Also light to carry and therefore easy to dance with, and easy to restock and carry around cases for staff. Now, due to the carbonated nature of our product, we use a particular type of PET called barrier PET. This is different to the PET that a water bottle is made from. Barrier PET allows us to have a safety first serve for late night environments whilst maintaining the highest possible standards of carbonation and taste. So our current barrier PET bottles are 100% recyclable, but they are made from virgin PET. So unfortunately not made from recycled materials at this point. However, so due to the barrier process, it is harder to move into recycled plastic, simply because until very recently, there haven't been any suppliers making barrier PET with recycled plastic. However, we have been able to start working with our suppliers to move to 25% recycled, 100% recyclable barrier PET, and expect to make that move in the coming months. Our longer term ambition is to move to 100% recycled, 100% recyclable barrier PET. No supplier currently makes this, but we know it is being developed, and when it is ready, we will move to it. We obviously can only move as fast as the wider industry on this, but it is definitely something we want to do. We're also looking at our secondary and our tertiary packaging. All our SKUs are packed in tray and shrink, and we have been the driving force with our co-packers against other big name brands in pushing for trials on both 30% and 50% recycled shrink wrap. After a few more trials, we'll be running into 30% recycled, 100% recyclable shrink across the board, with the ambition to move into 50% when the rest of the market catches up. Once we have sorted our case wrap, we will move into sorting our pallet wrap. Like the shrink wrap, it is already 100% recyclable, but we want it to be at least partly made of recycled materials too. Of course, as Christian said, there's a difference between supply and demand at the moment on good quality recycled materials that then can be repurposed. So we want to move as quickly as the market and the industry will let us, really, on this. So another option that we are looking into is a 250 ml can. There are pros and cons to cans. So in terms of safety, it is safer than glass, but unlike PET, it can still be weaponized if someone wants to twist and slash. Sustainability rise, it is probably the best if it's recycled, although again, as Christian's slide showed, that is still quite close. In terms of sellability, the product is smaller and it cannot be consumed or transported in the same way that our PETs can. So it is a complete change of consumer habits, which of course would always come with risk. So we are going to be planning an 8-week trial with certain venues in 2021 when things are back to normal and we can, assess the trial properly. So it is an option that we are looking into and we will be trialing in the future. Of course, in response to trends for lower sugar and lighter liquids, evidenced by the rise of hard seltzer, we are also currently developing a VK and soda liquid that is low in sugar and low in calories while still being big on taste, because we've personally found that the hard seltzers lack a little bit in that department. So you can see here there's kind of various concepts. We're still in the early stages of developing this. It may end up in a can, it may end up in a bottle or both. We're still working on it. So again, any feedback from just what you see on the screen here, really valued and welcome. So just drop it into the box so we can talk about it with you. But again, the idea is that it's very low in sugar, very low in calories, and delivering big taste that we know that VK does deliver in our normal product. And then finally, our POS pledges. So, and we've already started working on these. These are already underway. So we pledge to work with our suppliers to constantly reduce plastic packaging of our POS. One way of this is previously things used to come individually wrapped. That wasn't what we asked for, it's just how they came out of China. But now we're specifying that they don't need to be individually wrapped. They can be in packages of 10 or 20, say. We pledge to stop providing single-use plastic POS by Freshers 2021. We pledge to switching to using as much recycled plastic as is possible across our packaging and POS. And we pledge to use the most efficient and environmentally friendly packaging on our POS as is possible. Those are our pledges. We're committed to those as a brand and business. And that ends the talk. So hopefully you have a little bit of time to answer any further questions that you have. But thank you very much for listening in.